Good afternoon, everyone. Coach Tracy Cromwell here on your Personal Journey with Me podcast. And I'm excited today. I have a very special guest with me. I have Andrew Truong, and he is the founder of Rebel Ninja. And I'm really excited to learn more about his program, why he developed it, everything behind it. As you know, in my book, Your Personal Journey with Food, I have what's called a life radar. And part of that life radar all leads, I guess, if you were to be at the center of this radar, this target would maybe mean happiness, joy. You feel like inside of you, you're just, everything's going great. And there's all these things outside, though, that can possibly impact that area of your life. That's home improvement, physical activity, your health, joy, spirituality, your relationships, your finances, creativity, social life, career, education, home life, your community service. And all of those things make up you as a human being. And there's all sorts of other aspects of life that can make up who you are as a human being. So we can radiate from our center out, in joy and happiness. And so on this podcast, I like to bring people on that can help us create that just really well-balanced life. Or in this case, that, and then also a way to help kids. So Andrew, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. So
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you for being here. Yes. So Andrew is the founder of Rebel Ninja. So Rebel Ninja is an empowering program designed to help the youth cultivate an unstoppable confidence, nurturing their self-esteem and vital life skills. With a focus on building a positive self-image, enhancing social skills, bully prevention, and instilling resilience, this program equips kids with the tools that they need to navigate life's challenges effectively. From assertive communication to fostering a positive attitude, Rebel Ninja covers a wide range of topics, including overcoming people-pleasing. That's important. Eliminating limiting beliefs. I love that. And nurturing a growth mindset, which is absolutely incredible. By addressing fears, addressing negative self-talk and the inner critic, Rebel Ninja guides children towards a brighter, more confident future, filled with self-development and an invaluable ability to protect themselves from negativity. So I love this, Andrew. So thank you for being here. And you can, and everyone I've got in the description, be sure to read up about him. But I want to get to letting him talk here quickly. So how did you come to, what inspired you to create this program initially?
Yeah. I think that we all have some kind of level of insecurity, no matter if you're a child or an adult. And I think as adults, we're just grown up kids in a way. We kind of keep a lot of our adulthood. But I think what really, I guess my origin story is that I was bullied. So that's like probably the very beginning of it. I was bullied as a kid. And so I thought, well, you know what, if I learn how to fight, I will feel this empowerment and I won't ever get bullied again. But that wasn't entirely true. Deep down, I knew how to defend myself, but it didn't mean that other people would just stop picking on me, for example. And then when I would get bullied, I'd still do nothing because I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to hurt anybody. Right. And so for me, after doing martial arts for years and getting 9 different black belts and then teaching, and it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel really confident. And so it's kind of like, that took a long time. And so, and then I started to realize I also don't know who I am. And so I feel like that's a big part of my confidence, is knowing who I am. And so I kind of went on a little bit in my mid-20s, I just kind of went on a little bit of a search. I was like, well, what do I do with my time? Who am I? And things like this. And so I started taking some courses. I started reading more books, started listening to more podcasts. And so I started really getting into like self-development, which I thought I was always working on myself, when it came to academics, sports, martial arts, etc. But there was a whole side, like I didn't even know what the word mental health was until like my mid 20s. So
Mhm. Mhm.
um, it wasn't until applying more like behavioral science things in my life and understanding who I am, there's like a accumulation of things that really built my confidence. And then eventually I was like, cool, I feel really good. Like I know who I am. I know where I need to go, and like, I need to improve myself, but still, like, I have this unstoppable confidence. I was like, but I wish I could just go back into time and tell the little kid version of me all the things that I know, at least so that I would have this like shield, a mental shield of like protecting my confidence, and like a spear that like, hey, I can always actively build up my confidence, and I can protect myself from things that hurt my confidence, whether it's negative
Mhm.
feedback or maybe my relationship with failure. Like, oh man, I'm so bad at this. I'm so terrible. I'm so dumb. Like, I didn't know what self talk was. I didn't know what limiting beliefs were. So, like, if I knew these kinds of things as a kid, I mean, I don't regret how my life went. I think everything happens for a reason. But I
Mhm.
know that if I knew what I knew, then I would definitely have. How many times did I doubt myself in certain things, and how many times did I not go 100% because I didn't believe in myself, right? And
Mhm.
so like
Mhm.
the opposite, I found the opposite of confidence is self-doubt. Whether you're starting a business, whether you're trying to get into a new university, if you're so whatever your goal is, you always meet self-doubt. And so if you have self-doubt, you are in the opposite end of the spectrum of where confidence is. And so
Mhm.
once you realize that and where you are, I think then the next step is understanding what tools can I use to just almost like narrate myself through this story of mine so I can get to that position where I know that's my potential.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and so that's why that's what I do. What I do is like get this to the kids.
Yes, I love what you said. I experienced some of that as well. If the young Tracy knew, back then what she knows today, it would just be amazing. And I was bullied as well. We had a big time bully when I was 9. Um, and my sister, we were always afraid at school. If my sister was sick, we knew we were all going to get beat up. It was awful. This is in the 70s. That kind of dates me a little bit, but and things were, oh, you'll live this, or I run up to the recess teacher and she goes, oh, recess is, you only have 5 more minutes left. And I'm like, we'll be dead by that. I was like, oh, total chaos. But I will always remember that. It was very, scary. And I think too, one thing I've learned as an adult, I don't know what her life may have been like, what was going on for her, that
Yeah.
she would lash out at other students. And then at university, I even had it. Couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, and I thought when I went to university that people would be mature and adults, and so I love what you're doing because, Tracy, young Tracy could have really
Yeah.
used your knowledge. So, you mentioned in here that you've, um, the Rebel Ninja program, and you recognize there's an absence of this kind of offering
Yeah.
in school and education, and so it says here you repackage this information into some videos and things like that. So explain, like, what do the kids experience
Mm,
when they're working with you?
yeah.
And yeah.
And so, and there's two stages to it. There's two steps. And so
Mhm.
first they watch an educational training that's fun. There's animations and there's sound effects. That's really all there. So I don't lose their attention really.
Mhm.
Um, so there's the information. And then the next step is implementation. They need to be able to apply what they just learned immediately,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
in school we're taught knowledge is power, but that's just
Mhm.
part of the truth. The whole truth is application is power. So unless you
Mhm.
actually, like, you can learn and learn and learn, but unless you actually do, it's like business. Like, you learn all these business classes, but what revenue are you bringing in the business? Well, you have to
Mhm.
do in order to bring in the revenue. So it's like it's the same thing with confidence. It's like they need to learn, like, what is their identity, what is the self-image, What is negative feedback? And so they, in order to, so yeah, they know all these things, but you can still be unconfident. So you need to get out there. So then I create these little challenges for them to do. They have accountability. They have to do certain challenges, record themselves doing it, and post
Mhm.
it in a judgment-free community with other kids. Um,
Mhm.
an example of like implementation could be like, let's say a kid suffers with social anxiety, like they feel really awkward and they don't know what to say to people when they want to make a new friend. Like they're shy, and then there's like there's borderline, you're not just an introvert, you wanted to talk to somebody, but you just froze up. You were like, oh, I don't know what to say. They're going to think I'm weird. They're going to think I'm awkward. And then you end
Mhm.
up not doing anything. Right.
Mhm.
So then you
Mhm.
just prevented yourself from having deeper relationships with someone or creating new relationships, which, I mean, if this happens, then you will have this confirmation bias over the years as a kid growing up into adult. I'm just someone who just people think I'm weird. And so this becomes your identity. Oh, someone actually
Identity.
liked me. Oh, that's just because they felt sorry for me. And then they'll
Mhm.
find evidence to prove what they think their identity is. So
Mhm.
to kind of like snap out of it immediately, it's like, well, let's get some new proof for your brain where you
Right.
actually, so like the compliment challenge is one. You have to, there's different levels to it, because maybe you're like extremely like nervous and shy about talking to people, and then maybe it's not that hard for you, but like you walk up to somebody, say a compliment, wait for them to say thank you, and then you walk away. Don't be awkward and stand there and think like, oh, you have to keep a conversation going, right? So like what I say is like, all right, when
Compliment.
you're with mom or dad, go to the grocery store, whichever, you just play a game. You're like, okay, you guys can together pick, who do you want to compliment? Oh, I like that person's hair. That's what I'm going to say. So you go up, you say it, they say thank you, and you're like, oh, well, that felt kind of nice. But it's the
Mhm.
whole like walking up to somebody where they're going through that self-doubt. The inner critic is
Mhm.
like, oh, you are just, they're gonna think you're such a weirdo, they're not gonna believe you. So it's like all these thoughts that are happening, we're like
Mhm.
quieting that inner critic as we get more and more proof that the kids seeing like, oh, people actually like it when I approach them. I see
Yeah.
smiles, I hear the word thank you. um and so I feel good. They become good experiences, because um
Mhm. Mhm.
a lot of kids experience what's called the brush fire fallacy, which basically
Oh.
means if they have one bad experience, then they assume all the rest will be bad. If one kid in school doesn't like me, or one kid in my class doesn't like me, then that must mean everybody in the classroom doesn't like me, right? It's kind
Mhm.
of like they're using what information they have to make future assumptions about their next experiences. So one,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be a negative, like it doesn't have to be a bully experience. It could just be like, I went to say hi to some kid at the playground. They didn't say anything. Oh, that kid probably doesn't like me, right?
Right.
Now it's kind of like that narrative is basically going to, like a brush fire effect, kind of spread into, oh man, maybe the next kid I try and talk to is probably not going to like me too. Maybe it was my
Mhm.
hair. Maybe it's the way I look. Maybe I'm just, and it becomes a self-worth problem.
Right.
So, long story short, you learn about these different terminologies, such as, oh, that was negative feedback. So that wasn't my self-worth. It was just, that's, it's, you're seeing it as a fact. It's like, oh, it's just negative feedback from that one person. Doesn't mean it's going to
Mhm.
happen every single time, but I got to
Right.
protect myself. It doesn't mean that, oh, my self-image is who I see with my eyes closed. I'm not going to let that person's negative feedback change how I see myself, right?
Right. Right.
um and I'm
Mhm.
going to, I know that it's not that easy. So for me to get to like become a better version of myself, I need to get out of my comfort zone. Just little baby steps. I'm just going to
Mhm.
do just enough to where I feel a little bit challenged, and it's building a little bit of my confidence, and a little bit of like my self-belief, like, oh, I could probably do something a little bit harder. Like maybe it's just,
Mhm.
I'm going to compliment my aunt or uncle that I usually don't talk to at a family party. That's always a good start. And because
Mhm.
it feels safe, you're in a safe environment. You're not actually meeting real strangers.
Right.
And then the next level would be like, oh, well, that went well. I feel like I could probably handle a little bit more. So I think one of the big
Mhm.
mistakes that sometimes parents will make is like, oh, just go do it. That's, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's
Right.
scary. But
Yeah.
the brain is more complicated than that. There's
Right.
it's their nervous system, it's their emotions, not just logic. Like, oh, yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong that could happen. We know that, but the kid can't. They don't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, the amygdala and all this, we can get into that, but it's just in simple terms, baby steps. Try like level 1, talk to auntie, uncle, or grandpa, and just say, hey, I really like your gray hair. It looks fantastic today. And just walk away after they say thank you. Like, oh, that went good. Okay, how do you feel about trying this when we go to get some, groceries? Maybe you can
Mm-hmm.
find another, maybe someone who is like an older person, and you say, hey, I like XYZ, and then walk away. Oh, you did great. Oh, you feel good about that. And then on their own, naturally, this becomes, because this is a skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Confidence is a skill. Naturally, guess what they're going to want to do is on their own take on something harder. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
because they have that self-belief. I bet you at school, I could probably compliment someone next to me, or I can compliment the teacher. Or,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I was just in a conversation and then someone walked by. I was like, hey, I really like your binder. Whoa, I just did the
Yeah.
compliment challenge.
Yeah.
So little by little, that's basically like one of the challenges that I have kids do, because it
Mm-hmm.
builds a new experience, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a, when I call it the confidence unstoppable, it's like a snowball effect. You got to get it rolling a little bit, and you have to be like, the kid needs to be patient with themselves, and the parent needs to be patient with the process. And so
Mm-hmm.
with a little bit of momentum, little by little, it just becomes a bigger force, to where if you put a rock in front of it, it's going to absorb the rock and
Gonna
just keep
keep
moving
going.
forward.
That's
So, and
great.
then you stand in front of it, it's going to knock you down. It's like, that's unstoppable confidence. So if someone chucks spears of negative feedback at them, it just bounces off. So
Mhm.
that's the whole
Right.
goal.
Wow. And this is all in an app, right? You have an app, and then that the kids are in, and is that correct? Right? You have an
Mhm.
app.
So everything
Mm-hmm.
is in an app versus a like website, just so,
Okay.
because kids are already using apps for YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. I hope if they're 7 or so, maybe they're not using social media. but
Yes.
but
Yes.
all kids are. I mean, I've seen infants in strollers watching something on YouTube on an iPad. So I'm like, hey, I mean, if kids are already using these devices, might as well
Yeah.
put this
No, it's great.
program,
Yeah.
yeah, on a
Yeah. And then so they get to go in your app, and then what's the age group
yeah.
that you work with?
I'd say 7 and up. So youngest 7, oldest teens.
Mhm.
Now that's just for
Right. Yeah.
marketing purposes, but honestly, all the parents
Mhm.
who go through, like, they watch it with their kids, they tell me like, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, that helped me with my confidence." I'm like, "Yes, I know." I
Mhm.
don't market it as like, "Hey, it's gonna help the parents." I market it as, this is gonna help the kids, but watch it with them, because what's gonna happen is,
Mhm.
as they learn this and you watch it with them, you're going to see, you know what they're learning, so you can reinforce it. But also, it's because I know that, look, if you knew these lessons already, then we wouldn't be here. So I
Mhm.
want you to be
Mhm.
there so you can learn it with them, reinforce it, but you can also apply it yourself. If you're applying it yourself, you are leading by example. So it works two ways. They're learning it and they're seeing you do it. But if you're not involved,
Mhm.
it's it's very difficult for it to work. So
Right, and
I
it can
think all ages,
isolate the
honestly.
child. Yeah. Yeah, and it can be isolating to the child too when their parent doesn't
Mhm.
know. And then I love that it's the parents and the child together.
Yeah.
Um so you talk about in here as well. Let's just talk about bully
Mhm.
prevention. So explain what that means in this
Yeah.
context.
Because there's really there's two sides of the coin. There's prevention, and then there's the solution, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
um, the prevention is having confidence,
Mhm.
because confident people are less likely to get picked on. Because if you think of, like,
Mhm.
even if you look at nature, which
Mhm.
zebra is going to get attacked by the tiger?
Mhm.
It's not the one that's the most athletic, the one that can run away the fastest. The
Mhm.
the tiger wants the easy meal. So it looks for
Mhm.
the one that
Mhm.
is limping, the one that looks weaker. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
how a bully chooses a victim.
Okay.
Because I mean, what bully is going to want a difficult fight? They want a fight that is, because you think about it, bullies are hurt people hurting other people.
Can you say
No
that
one
again? Say that again.
bullies are hurt people that hurt other people.
Mhm.
No confident person is going to think, oh, you know what, I'm going to push this person down so I can push myself up. They don't have that need. It's someone
Mhm.
who doesn't have a kid that doesn't have love at home. They're being maybe like they feel like they're not worthy, right? I don't know, sometimes there could be broken
Mhm.
relationships in the household, and that can affect a kid's idea of their self-worth. And kids are very self-centered, so it's like, even
Mhm.
if something between mom and dad aren't working out, a kid might think, oh, that's because of me. And so
Mhm.
it's like, so hurt people hurt people. Back to your
Mhm.
original question, bully prevention, right? So
Yeah.
basically, if a child knows how to exude confidence, then someone who is a bully won't see that person as someone who is easy to pick on. But what
Mhm.
does confidence look like? So I teach the kids meta communication, which only a small fraction of your confidence comes from like what you say, but a lot of it
Right.
comes from how you stand. So it
Mhm.
is your posture, it is your eye contact, it is the tone of how you speak, and
Mhm.
very little of it has to do with what you say. So
Mhm.
I teach the kids, it's like, in simple terms though, but really it's your physiology affects your psychology, so if you have hunch, so I give them like a contrast of bad and good. Like that's how, like, my method of teaching all the time, like, hey, here's a bad example, here's a good example, which one
Mhm.
do you want to do, right? So I make it super
Mhm.
obvious. I'm like, this is bad posture, you have your shoulders hunched, and you're
Mhm.
looking
Looking
down at the
down.
ground. Yeah, and then it's like, if you saw me like that, what would you think? And you try to talk to me, you'd probably think I'm not interested in talking to you. What, right? But really, it's because I feel like you maybe don't like me, but really to you, it looks like I'm not confident, right? So you can just show all that. People don't have to be a master of body language to pick up on these things. So
Mhm.
the reverse is true. If you just copy the body language of a confident person, people will just assume you're confident. And what's crazy is that's also a hack to help you feel more confident even faster, because you're like, the smile you have, the eye contact that you're making, and the body language, you
Mhm.
will feel better, right?
Mhm.
So I teach the kids, yeah, posture. What does that look like, and why? Now, eye contact. Why? Because if you can't, and that's probably usually the hardest one for the kids, is looking at someone in the eyes without feeling weird and awkward. Because then
Mhm.
they're thinking about themselves so much that they're like, oh, what is that person thinking of me? They can probably tell I'm looking at them, their eyes, and oh, I feel them looking back at me. And so it's like, um, but so I coach now. I give them a little game, like the eye contact game with their parents, like see who can have the longest eye contact. So they practice it.
Mhm.
And if they feel awkward with eye contact, they can look at the forehead, the nose, one eye, the other eye, and switch between all of those, because
I
then
love that.
yeah,
Yes.
because there's a cool little trick to help kids who struggle with eye contact just get used to making eye contact to where they don't think
Mhm.
about it anymore, right? But
Mhm.
if they're thinking too
Mhm.
much about it, at least there's a little strategy for them, and the other person can't
Mhm.
tell that they're doing it, and that's the great thing, right? um
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm not going off on a tangent. Yeah, so
No, no,
basically,
that was really good because it's true. Even, I think everybody watching can sit there and think, just when you go through the grocery store or you're walking down the street, um, how many people really make eye contact with the person, you know,
yeah,
walking past them, right? So I try
yeah,
really hard. Sometimes I don't want to do it, but I stand up straight and I I try and make eye contact. And some people they'll come up and like, oh, but then they'll say hi, and it does
yeah.
change even how you see the world. Like you can see it as unfriendly, but maybe as we make the posture change or we
Mhm.
choose to be open and confident, it will impact others around you too. So I know I squirreled a
Yeah.
little bit there, but
No,
it
no,
does impact the people around you in many ways.
absolutely. I think because there are always, I think one myth we should totally bust is that there are confident people and then there are not confident people. We all have insecurities. It's just a matter of
Mhm,
what percentage of it have we eliminated, but there's always going to be a little bit of it remaining, and we're human and
mhm,
but that's what's fun and beautiful, is that we can always become a better version of ourselves. It's a game we can keep
mhm.
playing, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um, so, but yes, and it's confidence is a choice, confidence is a skill. But if we believe it's what we're born with, that's the problem. Because if we believe that's just what we're born with, and if I don't have it, I wasn't born with it, therefore it's out of my control. I can't take
Mhm,
accountability for it. But if
mhm,
confidence is a skill, which means just like riding a bike, just like writing it with a pencil, I can start getting good at this. It opens up
mhm,
the growth mindset, like, whoa,
mhm,
I guess it's possible. It's possible for me to get comfortable with talking to people. It's
mhm,
possible for me to have lots of friends. It's possible for me to, um, feel worthy. And so now
mhm,
it's like, so what I teach the kids is, if you're not confident, it's nobody's fault. It's your own fault. And I say
mm,
that out of love. Like, if we believe that the reason why we feel the way we feel is because that person hurt us or because we grew up like this, which all those can be true, but we can let those outside things control how we feel, or we can be in
mhm,
control.
mhm.
So it's a
Yeah.
matter of like eliminating this victim mindset of like, I'm the way I am because of the way I was born or what's around me in my environment. A part of that can be true. And here, the thing I always say is like, we cannot we can't control how other people treat us,
Right.
but we can control how we respond.
Right.
And
Yep.
when it comes to bullying, how it starts with empathy. If we
Mhm,
understand why this bully is bullying, then it helps us not react. It helps us respond. Hurt people hurt people. Oh, I don't know their
mhm.
full story. Maybe there's something going on at home.
Yeah.
Maybe there's they don't know how to treat other people with love because they've never been treated with love, right?
Mhm.
Because if
Yep.
they knew how to treat with people with love, then that's what's going into them is coming out of them, basically, right? So
Yeah.
so empathy is number one. So everything that you do, you can respond with love and patience and assertiveness rather than anger and reacting, because that's what a bully wants. Because if you
Mhm,
react, the bully's like, yes, you're
mhm,
easy. That's exactly what I wanted. That's the energy I wanted. But instead of you're calm,
mhm.
content, confident, that that just like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's the last thing that they expected. So
Mhm,
then, of course, then there's
mhm,
like, well, what do I say? What do I do? Then that comes with meta communication. It's like, okay, so when I respond, check, how's my body language? Am I kind of go,
mhm,
oh, like this? Or, and am I looking at the person in the eyes? But am I looking angry, or am I just looking serious and unaffected? Um,
mhm,
so the bully
mhm,
prevention is one part, but then there's like, what do I do when I do get bullied? So that's the meta
mhm.
communication, which I call the art of kung fu, which is like basically it play on with words with the art of kung fu, because I used to teach martial arts. I used to teach
Okay.
kung fu,
Mhm,
but it's like, what do I say? But then what's the tone when I say it? Do I just
mhm,
tell them like, hey, like, stop? Do I just go, hey, stop saying that to me? Like for kids who are like younger, like maybe 6, 5, and 4, they can say things like, stop, leave me alone. Like they can say things like that. Or they can say, stop, don't do
mhm,
that. I don't
mhm,
like that. So that tone, it's kind of
mm.
like it comes from a weaker position, right? Versus I tell them, like, think of like, how would your parents tell you to stop doing something bad? That's the tone you should have, right?
Yes.
And you probably
Channel that.
you can probably remember how that sounds, so copy that, and that's how you
Bring that
speak.
strength, yes.
Yeah, but also like, don't let your uh like, maybe how you actually feel is like you feel like succumbing, but don't like
Mhm,
expand, be bigger, expand your
Mhm.
body, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's the
Yeah, and it's
difference.
very oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I
that's
thought
just the
you
difference between like bully
Mhm.
prevention and then actually
Mhm.
like what to do in a bully situation.
Right. I like how you brought up, the your positioning and the tone of your voice, and so just to tell my story, so I'm 9 years old, 3rd grade, and we had
Yeah.
specific bully, and she had a friend of mine by the hair slamming her head. She had her on her knees slamming her head into a door of the classroom. And all the kids came around like in this circle, and everyone was so afraid of this bully that everyone was just in shock watching what was happening. And so I know, like, I was brought up, we don't let that happen. We don't hit, we don't hurt people. And with the utmost fear, I step forward and I'm like, leave her alone. But I didn't know how to say it with commandment, commanding, concept. And then so this gal turns like a rabid lion and comes after me. We're literally in a lock, shoulder to shoulder, and she's yelling and screaming at me. And I'm like, I gotta defend myself. So I went to kick her in the shins, and and then I was scared because I was like, I don't hurt people.
Yeah.
I don't hurt people. So then that made her even madder. And so we wrestle, I get away, and that's when I was running like a who knows when. She's right after me. I'm running across the front of the school. I find the recess teacher. It's like I have to survive another 5 minutes. Of course, um, after recess, we told, what happened to Tiffany, but it is scary. I mean, you are, I can see where with some of this training and a way to stay calm and, or whatever, I was just in a situation where she was a very physical bully, and it was 1976. Okay. So, but it is interesting. I can see where building someone's confidence, doing the work of posture, the tone, you know, and having as many children as possible able to do that to prevent someone from choosing them,
Yeah.
as a victim of being a
Yeah.
bully can can emulate out across a playground, across a school, um, you know, um, and taking that initiative of teaching that confidence in kids, So yes, I had a crazy
Yeah.
situation, but that
You know,
happens. This stuff's happening. So,
and this is why I do what I do. You
mhm.
you just described what happened to you as a child in 1976. Sometimes I can't even remember what I had for breakfast the day before. So
I remember it
anything
like,
that
mhm,
so what the reason why we remember these things, these traumas, is because for anything to be stored as a long-term memory, an emotion must be tied to it. It could be funny, it could be a
mhm,
traumatic experience. So that's why when people
mhm,
get
mhm,
bullied or when you
mhm,
have anything traumatic happen in your life, you can't ever forget. You just described the entire story like you lived it yesterday, right?
mhm. Yep.
Which tells me kind of the level of intensity, that
That it
emotion
was.
that you felt during that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and the reason why I say this is because as adults, the reason why we have insecurities, what's most of the reasons why we have insecurities or like negative self-talk or we just lack confidence, um, is because a lot of it comes from childhood trauma, right? And
Mhm,
so
mhm,
if you suffer from anxiety, depression, or like you go to a therapist,
mhm,
what will the therapist like, what's their job? Their job, let's say if you're a teenager or in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whichever, their job is to peel back the layers. Why do you feel this way? What
mhm,
why are you reacting this way in your relationships or et cetera? Or when you're trying to do something, why are you self-sabotaging yourself? And their job is to ask you questions, peel back the layers to where we get to the core of the problem. And majority of the time, what they find is your childhood trauma. So why do I
Yeah.
do what I do
Yes.
is because I can't create a time machine and fix you. You know, it's like you're now the therapist's job, not mine. So my job is, how can I prevent history from rewriting itself? The
Yeah.
next generation, right? The pain that you suffered,
Yeah.
how do we prevent that from happening for your kids, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's why I do what I do. And that's also
Yeah.
why a lot of the parents who are going through the program with their kids, really it's for them, but why is it affecting the parents? Because I think as a society in the last couple of years, what's been great is mental health has become way more accepted, way more talked about.
Mhm.
And the thing that we need to catch up on is, how do we now solve this like mental health crisis of, you know,
Mhm.
that it's really difficult. I have a friend, he was called fat when he was a kid. Now he's a
Mhm.
coach helping people with their health and all that.
Yeah.
And so this is long past him, right? So uh and then recently one of his friends, while they're out eating, is like, dude, you're so fat. And he flipped.
Oh,
He started shouting at his friend. And then after that, he reflected, he's like, dude, why did I react that way? Like, what just happened? So
yeah.
it's like, it can be years and years of healing that you've worked on your traumas, but I think that proves to show, like, no matter how much you work on healing, it's just not easy, right?
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so if we can prevent that, that's years of undoing that won't have to happen. Imagine here, imagine if a kid, all kids, could just, they have this light. When you agree, like, kids have this really bright light inside of them where they just play, everything's fun, and you can learn so much
Mhm.
from watching a kid. From like, I was watching
Yeah.
my nephew, my sister posted a story, and he's like 2, and he has this pretend plate of food, gives it to his mom, and just goes, yeah, like he's all excited just to give his
There you
mom a
go.
pretend plate of food. It just, all that
Yeah.
joy that came out of that simple little thing, right? And then what happens is, he's someday going to go to school, and he's like, he loves golf, he plays golf, and and he just watches his dad, he watches golf on TVs, he gets so excited about hitting a golf ball, right? And let's just pretend he gets into a class, and then some kids like, dude, golf is stupid.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how, like, as the parent, and you watch that bright beaming light of confidence and joy get dimmed down,
Mhm.
no matter how
Mhm.
much at home you say, I love you, you're amazing, golf is,
Yeah.
like, you're going to be great at golf, or you don't need people to justify whether or not you should like this. Like, no matter what you say, there's always going to be, yeah, but in this social environment where I feel a need to belong, I'm not belonging. At
Mhm.
home, I get it. You love me because you're my parents. You're supposed to, right? But when I
Mhm.
leave and step out this door, I don't feel this way.
Yeah.
There's so there's this, that's a big reason why a lot of kids lose confidence, is they receive negative feedback. It doesn't have to be as harsh as, dude, they call you a name. It could just be, I approached somebody, they didn't seem to like me, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Or
it's
maybe just
seeing that
yeah.
happen that breaks my heart.
Yeah, or them knowing maybe the aspect of what you were saying earlier, we have all this stuff going on around us. Life is happening around us, and there's
Mm,
other people's opinions, right? That
mhm.
doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you that
Right.
someone doesn't like golf and someone says it's stupid. That's their opinion, but we can take it like a dagger against us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so learning confidence to say, "Oh, great. You don't like it? That's fine,
Yeah.
go ahead." But it's that at the moment, sometimes the brain just freaks out,
Yeah.
panics. Or I've had situations that happen. I think most people have had this experience when something happens and you're just like, "Ah, ah,"
Yeah.
and you go home and it's like 3 in the morning. Oh, I know what I should have done, I mean, it's
I knew
so,
I should have
it's
said.
like, what I should have said or,
Yeah.
whatever. And but yeah, maybe too. It's just that's someone else's opinion, and that doesn't
Yeah.
denote that you are not worthy or you're not a good
Hmm.
person or that you don't have value. But it's muddy upstairs in that brain,
Yeah.
with a different, negative Nelly and Ned and no
Yeah.
no nothing against Nellies and Neds, but just that negative side of our mind. What do you think
Yeah.
about that? Like, I think of it as it wants to protect us, so it wants us to be smaller.
Mm.
Don't get out there too far, maybe, because then people will say things about you.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um, yeah.
it's kind of like a natural response, I believe, with
Mhm.
like, so you have, I mean, the kid's got a nervous system. You've got the fight, flight, or freeze. And
Mhm.
if you're never if you've never once painted the picture of something potentially happening and then it happens, you're in shock, you freeze, right? So
Mhm.
freeze is
Mhm.
the worst response because it's the least productive. um,
Mhm.
Flight that option is usually the best because you remain safe, right? But sometimes when you're
Mhm.
at school, where are you going to go? You have to come back to this classroom every single day and meet this bully, right? So
You
in that
can't see.
case,
There's no flight. Mm-mm.
yeah. So in that case, sometimes fight's not gonna work. And so fight, but I don't mean
Mhm.
fight with your fists, but fight as in take action. But it's like, well, what do I do? Right? It's where that's
Mhm.
why you're freezing
Mhm.
because you don't know what to do. You are
Mhm.
just like, I can't believe this is happening, right? It's
Mhm.
that's what happened my first bully incident. Is just like I've never had anyone be so mean to me before that I just can't believe that this is like another human can have this kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
evil in them. Like I've never been treated like this before, and so I started crying. Like I didn't know what to do. I just froze. I had all these emotions, and I was like, I'm just crying. I can't control it, right? And I was just like
Mhm.
first grade. So,
Aw.
and but I want to go back to something that you said, and that was, uh, well, I'm forgetting. But what was your question? I go
You
on a
want me
tangent,
to
and I
know?
always,
I love it. So what I love about this show is that we don't edit, we don't do it. We're treating it live. I know everyone watching this is actually pre-recorded, but this some of the best parts of is life is like this. It's not perfect. And
yeah.
we have things happen. I just love it. That's why I love
I had
doing
so
this.
much to say, and then it just like became a huge
It
library
went
of things to
away.
say, but I can only
I
speak
love it.
so much at a time. That I'm like, oh man, what
I
was the
know.
other thing I wanted to say? Um,
But we were
but
talking about just the bullying, and then
yeah,
uh, I told my story. Um, we were talking about, here this happened to me, in 1976. The good part is now I don't have an emotion associated. I've been able to turn it to wisdom, just like you go to wisdom, and I have empathy now, and I again, that's where I think if we can educate kids now so that when they're in a situation,
yeah,
and I know I'm lagging a little bit on my end in terms of my video. So sorry about that, everybody. But it's that concept. And we get asked that a lot. If we could go back in time and teach our younger self something
mhm,
to help them, and you've decided that you're going to, because you can't do that, right? You
right,
don't go back in time physically, but you can help other kids so that they
yeah,
they know what to do under these situations of confidence. And I'm sure tonight, like at 1 in the morning, you'll remember what you wanted to say because that's the way it
yeah,
goes, right?
yeah.
Um, let's see. So I wanted to bring up um, if
I
if
have a well, actually, before we move on, I'll just add one more
oh yeah.
thing, which was not what I was doesn't feel or sound like what I was planning to say, but in the end, if a child is prepared and they know like I don't ever get bullied, but if I ever did, this is how I would respond versus react, right? And I think that yeah, it's I think there was something that you mentioned that it's just like you froze up, right? But yeah, to prevent that from happening, if you just know some basic bully prevention or what to say in a bully
Mhm.
situation, I think that'll really help a kid. But then
Mhm.
I know that some parents will be like, well, my kids will never get bullied. Let's just
Mhm.
pretend that's true, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
don't believe that's true, but I believe your child
Mhm.
eventually will meet someone who is not very nice.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do you then address that? And then also, if you see someone else get bullied, will you have the confidence to go and
Mm.
stand up for somebody, right?
Yes, right.
And a big part of that has to do with a skill. It's a communication
Mhm.
skill, right?
Mhm.
Meta communication. So
Mhm.
the more skills that a kid has in social skills, that's a huge one.
Mhm.
Then a big part of that, they will have the confidence because they know what to do. They've rehearsed it. So, like in my program, I basically have like a simulation battle where I dress up as a bully, and you have your health points, I have my health points. When I bully
Mhm.
you, and then it works, your health goes down. But if you don't
Mhm.
let it affect you and then you respond the way I coach you to, my health goes down and I lose, right? You didn't have to
Mhm.
hit me, you don't have to fight me, or you just had to use your words with the right tone, the right facial expressions,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so I think sometimes there's this assumption that, oh, if my kid's an extrovert, they're not going to ever need to know how to know any of this, right? So that's not true. It's like confidence has nothing to do with personalities. It doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert. Sure, an introvert might not prefer to be in social settings, and extroverts do. Doesn't mean though that like an extrovert is willing to stand for what they believe in, right?
Mhm.
They can be
Mhm.
talkative, but then when it comes to voicing what they believe in, they might actually be totally hushed. Like that environment where like all the kids were watching that girl get beat up by that other girl, how many of those kids probably enjoyed being social but they didn't know what to do,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
there's a
Mhm.
skill involved
Mhm.
which can serve in many other aspects of life. But anyway,
Mhm.
I wanted to mention that just before we moved on.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because it's true. If it's sort of like people that go to a self-defense class, they're
Hmm.
taught, they're put in a situation so that their brain can fire off the response that's going to help them in a second versus
Hmm.
it being something that is delayed and unrehearsed or unknown, that freeze effect, right? So
Exactly.
so it sounds like, yeah.
One of my favorite examples that but by the way, I have a hard stop in 5 minutes. But
Oh,
one of my
no
favorite
worries. That's
examples.
great. I love it. Nope, not a problem. Not a problem. This is
One
all
of my favorite
good.
examples that my sifu in Chinese is like your master. And so one of my favorite things my sifu would say is like, yeah, like if you had me perform my martial arts tonight, tomorrow, whenever, like I could do it because I'm confident. But if you asked me to put on a tutu and do a ballerina show, I'd be so nervous, right? Because
Yes.
I don't know how, right? I've never practiced that. And
Mhm.
so basically, there's specialized confidence, right? So when you think about confidence, it's a huge umbrella. Well, what are you confident in? Are you confident in public speaking? Are you confident in your soccer skills or football skills, or are you confident in talking to people? So there's different levels. Like for me, I can enter a public area, and if a fight were to break out, I'd be super chill and calm. But like, oh, there's my exit. I'm just gonna walk my way out of here. And I'm like, I wouldn't be freaking out, right? Because I've been
Yeah.
trained, I've been prepared. But for a lot of
Mhm.
kids, it's like sometimes they need to start with like a specialized confidence. It could be bullying, so they need meta communication, or they're super shy and so they're not talking to people. They need to work on their social skills to eliminate their social anxiety. Or maybe they are like reluctant to try new activities because they have a fear of failure, because they have a bad relationship with failure, or they have they have external confidence but not internal confidence. Well, unless I get praised for doing a good job right? Then if I try this and I fail, I won't get praise, and therefore I'm a bad kid. So they have like this validation issue. So there's a large variety of things, but you know, basically, if I could just like, if anyone's listening and you're a parent, the very first step in building confidence is knowing yourself, knowing your identity, because you cannot have
Mhm.
self-confidence if you don't know yourself. It's in the word, right?
Mhm.
Once you know
Mhm.
yourself, then you need to understand just the basics. Self-image, that's who, it's
Mhm.
not who you look like, it's when you close your eyes, in your mind's eye, do you feel pretty, beautiful, handsome, smart, enough, powerful, great, capable, worthy? And so, do you feel those things? That's your self image. Now, if you don't, or if you do, that's just your starting point. If you don't,
Mhm.
then you can do things like self talk, affirmations. So you can rewire your subconscious brain, and you need to practice the skill of crushing or stomping on your ants, like your automatic negative thoughts, right? So
Mhm.
there's like, oh, I need to build up my confidence, right? So those are
Mhm.
tools to prevent your confidence from dwindling down, and then there are tools for you to build that confidence up, and that's like the
Mhm.
foundation of your confidence. Now you can have that belief in yourself. You're limiting self-doubt. You can go and like uh go at 100% and eliminate that like imposter syndrome that you feel when you try something new, or you have like,
Mhm.
oh, you know what, I know that when I try this, if I fail, there's no such thing as failing. I either win or I learn. Or hey, if I go and talk to someone, they reject me, that's okay. That's their opinion of me, not a
Right.
fact. That's something
Right.
I think I might have was trying to talk about earlier.
Yes, we were talking about something like that. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's just,
Yes.
so these are all skills. You do not, or you cannot be born with this information. You have to learn it, and then you have to
Mhm.
apply it.
Apply it. I love it. So I know you need to run, so do I. But so how do people find you? Let's go ahead and do an audible on that. So go ahead and
Yeah, yeah.
explain.
Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, if you have an Android, I'm not sure why, but what you can do is download the Rebel Ninja app and then go into the free training. There's a couple of different free courses, from like bullying, and one that focuses on just the art of Kung Fu with the meta communication. And there's one that talks about like finding out your ninja type so you understand your identity. Parents can take that with the kids so you both understand. By the way, I've had parents tell me, wow, my relationship with my child, it just got better because we understand each other better. I'm like, oh, go figure.
So
Yes.
great. I love
Yeah.
that.
And then
Yeah.
so there's identity, understanding self-image, people pleasing. There's a lot of really amazing, powerful basics
Mhm.
that are in there that if you just absorb that, you'd be way better. Like your child will be way better off with the confidence for the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Andrew, I love how you took your past experience and you've turned it to wisdom, and now you're teaching it to kids. And that's a great lesson for all of us. We can choose to be victims of our past, or we can turn it to wisdom, and then we can create something to help those, that are could be struggling with the same thing. So I just love what you've done. I was so glad that I met you and that I was able to have you on the show. Cannot wait for people to hear your message. And thanks again for being here. So
I'm
everyone, yeah, so good.
I'm
Sorry.
grateful. I'm grateful and honored that you'd even have me. So thank you.
Oh, I love it. I may have to have you on again because I think we could talk
Okay.
for 2-3 hours easily. But you have such great information that people
Yeah.
can turn around right now and use. So I love that. So
Yes. Immediate
okay,
application.
everyone. So Andrew, you hang on for one more second. Let's say goodbye to everyone. Thanks for being here on the
See you
podcast,
guys. Thanks for
everyone.
listening.